and these are two of the genes for enzymes that are central to fat synthesis, and this protein regulates expression of these two. So we're looking first at this, and then its effect on these targets. The blue are the animals in the low-fat diet, and the orange the animals in the high-fat diet. Now, the way that the study is set up is that we're looking at both the fasting state and then comparing it to what happens after a high-carbohydrate meal. So this is what happens in animals that are in the fasting state, and these are the animals that were also fasted the same amount of time and then given a high-carbohydrate meal that they could eat for 16 hours, so it's going on for a long time. So the two strengths of the protocol is, one, we have a basis of comparison. Most studies would only be looking at either this state or this state, and the other is that all of the animals, regardless of whether they were on the low or the high-fat diet, are getting the same high-carbohydrate meal. The high-carbohydrate meal should increase insulin release, and we show that it does, and plus it provides high levels of blood glucose. Both high insulin and high glucose are stimulants of fat synthesis. So in the low-fat animals, just starting over here with this regulator, we got a better stimulation of expression of this regulator than we do in the high-fat animals. It's still responding, but not as much. If we look at the genes that this regulates, you can see that in the low-fat animals we're getting a better stimulation of expression than in the high fats, this one whoppingly better than this. If we actually look at the amounts of the proteins that these code for, here we're looking at this protein, we get more of the protein being synthesized in the low-fat animals than in the high-fat animals. So it's consistent. If we look at the maturation of this protein into a form that can now go and regulate these, maturation is pretty much the same. So what we're really seeing is a change in expression. If we look at this protein, fatty acid synthase, we're getting a better increase. We're getting really no significant increase in the animals on the high-fat diet. If we look at this protein, acetyl-CoA carboxylase, we're also getting a better increase in the animals on low-fat than the high-fat. So there's a consistency between the better expression in the animals in the low-fat group and the greater abundance of those particular proteins. So this is after 1 week. It looks like the high-fat diet is making the animals less responsive to a stimulus for fat synthesis. At 10 weeks on the diet, we're performing the same protocol, and here we're looking at expression of this regulator. I'm not seeing as strong a difference between the groups. It's like hardly anything going on. For these two targets, really the only one that we're still seeing a difference in is in fatty acid synthase, not so much in the others. So it seems like we've lost some of the effect. There's a little bit there, but it's not as dramatic.
Sorry, is it that the body adapts?
Well,
the high fat, and it sort of goes back to normal?
It could be that. It could be something that is a good adaptation. The liver already has so much fat, and this adaptation wouldn't add to the fat, so that might be a good thing. We don't know what the mechanism is. What we've been looking for is to see whether it's because the livers are insulin resistant or whether there's something special about the fat that's acting directly. But the other thing that's happening at 10 weeks is that there doesn't seem to be much of a difference between the groups and how much of the actual proteins are made. So there's something that's still going on here at the level of how much of these genes are expressed, and then when you look at the groups in terms of how much of the proteins are synthesized, there's not that much of a difference. So our conclusion is that the effect, at least the way that we have it set up here, that we see at 1 week on gene expression is more or less continuing to week 10, but not as much, and then we're sort of losing this difference in the amount of protein. And one of the things that's happening in these animals is that they're getting older. 10 weeks doesn't seem like a lot, for us, but it is a lot for them.
Oh, that's a concern.
Right, and I think one of the things, that's happening is that the regulation of translation of these genes has altered in some ways, not responding the same way to stimulants as they were before. So this was sort of a pilot study to see, will keeping them on the diet longer give us more of an effect? at least following this particular protocol, we're not. But since we did that, we've also looked at animals that are even longer on the diet, 16 weeks on the diet, and actually then we're still seeing it, and we got to see it more. So I think that these animals, maybe the way that we did the protocol wasn't the best way to look at it. I mean, that's why this is a poster and not a paper. But this was sort of a, you know, a trial. You know, it's like what if we, you know.
It's interesting, like also seeing like the lifespan of the animal, but then also like seeing if there's cycles. Or, like,
Right,
is
it might be, or it might just be sort of a change in the protocol. They live for about 2 years,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's
So it's not that
100.
long,
That's
okay.
100 weeks. So 10 weeks is a tenth of their life.
Yeah. That's a
So I mean, if you look at that way, it's
reasonable bit.
significant, right? But anyway, the sort of the important thing for us was that most of this, you know, kept on going, and that it wasn't just a 1 week effect. That after prolonged, you could still see some differences. You're welcome.
I think